Welcome back, and this is day 3 of the demolition of our van as we try to get it ready to actually start construction. Here I'm trying to get some of the rust off of this entryway and not meeting a lot of success there, even with the grinder. So when I hit a little bit of difficulty, I move on to the next task, and that's removing this floorboard here on the false floor in the van. And it's held down by a bunch of screws and glue to the steel frame that's underneath it, which we also have to remove. And now I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of the heater that you see in the left-hand corner there, the diesel heater left over from the previous owners. I thought it was kind of a bonus when I originally bought the truck, since it would be something that would be useful, but from everything I've seen online, it's not going to be very necessary as long as we do a decent job with insulation. The body heat alone from the 3 humans and 1 dog that'll be living in this van will be enough to keep it warm, and we don't plan on visiting the Himalayas or the Alps or anything, at least not in the long term. And as a backup, we always have the car heater. If we really get too cold, I can just turn the car on for a few minutes. But we're also going to have the battery pack and the refrigerator and our laptops and lots of stuff that's creating heat in the van. And now I've gone back to pulling the screws out of the floor, which is fun because they're held in by 4 different types of screws. There's a couple of bolts, there's a couple of star-headed screws, there's traditional Phillips screws, there's flathead screws. So I got to keep changing the settings on my drill. And now going back to the heater, which you just don't have very much room. I've only got about 15 degrees of turn with each turn of the socket wrench, so it's taking forever to get those things out. And I'm trying to put together a longer socket wrench that would allow me to get more rotation in there, but I actually waste more time looking for the right tool than it would have taken me to just do the job the hard way. And that is a lesson that I am taking to heart almost every day in this project. I'm looking for the right way, or the easy way to do things, when it turns out that the best way to do it was just the first thing that occurred to me, and the hardest way. I'm going to run into this again later, grinding away the rivet joints that hold the steel floor down. I tried many different ways to get those rivets out, and in the end the grinder was the only way to do it. But here I am, turning those bolts 10 or 15 degrees at a time. It must have been 200 little tiny half motions, and I could barely reach in there to even turn it with my fingers. But there it is, got it out. So now there's only one more before I discover that the exhaust pipe coming out of the bottom of the heater is also going to be kind of a task to get unstuck. But that brings me to lesson number 2, is that, it's okay to break things. You're going to throw them away anyway. I'm not 100% sure that we're not going to keep this diesel heater, but I'm 90% sure. Especially because I plan on having a gas stove, which could also work as a source of heat in dire circumstances. Well, everybody's taking a nap, and I've got some energy, and even though it's raining, so I can't work on the outside of the van, I can still work on the inside. So, let's see what I can do here. Set this up. Bada bing, bada boom. Now we're going to get into just trying to pry out pieces of the floor and figure out where it is still stuck, because I've got all the screws out at this point, and I'm trying to figure out what is holding this thing down. Sometimes getting distracted by little smaller projects just because I need a feeling of accomplishment.
Natalia is cleaning away all of the rust from this metal plate, this metal step that leads into the van. Now it's been covered up with wood, probably since the van was built back in 2016, and moisture has been allowed to accumulate there, so it's got a pretty thick layer of rust on it. And she's just taking away one layer at a time, making sure to get up all of the stuff that might detach and get mixed in, ruin any paint surface. We're not going to be able to get up all of it. It's just, there's too much, and it doesn't go all the way through, so I'm not too worried about it. But now we're going to come back and coat it several times actually with this chemical that's supposed to be like a primer for rust. And it creates some sort of layer via complex chemical reactions with the rust and allows for paint to stick to it. We're not going to be putting regular paint on here. It's like a rubberized soundproofing, waterproofing paint, and it doesn't really go on like paint. It's more like spreading peanut butter, maybe warm peanut butter. But now we're going to get back to taking care of this metal frame that has been the bane of our existence for the last 2 days. When I originally bought the van from the guy in Rivne, Ukraine, he took out about 2/3 of the floor in about 90 minutes. And it has taken Natalia and I probably 10 hours over 3 days to get this section of this subflooring out. It is all steel, and it's held in almost all with rivets, although there are a couple of bolts mixed in there, just randomly, I guess, for variety's sake. And it's bolted to the actual frame of the car, so there's really no easy way to do it. What seemed to help is that my level of frustration was generally growing, and eventually I am just going to get tired of dealing with it, and anger seemed to be the key to getting this thing done. You put a grinder in my hand, and well, I like to use some force to get these rivets unstuck. Natalia's trying to knock them out with an awl and a hammer, but these rivets are really heavy duty, industrial grade, and that doesn't usually work. I am still vainly attempting to drill them out with metal drill bits, and that worked for about 3 of the 40 or so that we had to do. But now once I get in there with the grinder, it's really hard to reach some of these. But taking a hammer to it and just grinding away. Also, I think speeding up the grinder, as my confidence level has grown with the grinder, I've been gradually increasing the speed of the blade, and that seems to help quite a bit. Although we're blowing through those grinding discs pretty quickly. I've been buying the DeWalt brand grinding discs, but I also got a couple from Dnipro M, which is a Ukrainian tool company that's sprung up all over Ukraine the last couple years. Headquartered obviously in Dnipro. And they make a pretty wide range of tools, including grinders and all the disposables that go along with them. And I don't own any of their tools yet, but they seem like they're pretty good quality. And they've got an orange and black Color motif. I kind of like the yellow, but maybe that's just because my dad was a DeWalt man. DeWalt tools are about twice as expensive as anything else here because they're imported. You can get Bosch is probably the next most expensive brand, and Dnipro M is not the cheapest, definitely not the cheapest. But you can get Milwaukee here as well. They do have Milwaukee. But of the, construction grade tools, I would say that Dnipro M is a really good cost to benefit, cost to quality ratio. We had been at Epicenter, the home improvement store, and I could have bought a crowbar, and I didn't because I wanted to save the $12. But I'm really regretting that because now I'm trying to pry all that stuff out with a regular hammer. But there it goes. This piece is almost removed. We've got, there's another couple percentage, and this piece is loose. There we go. And it finally comes out. That gets thrown on the junk pile, and that's all. It comes in here with a broom to clean up the 8 years of grease and grime and dust, and I don't even want to know what else that has been sitting in this subfloor since the interior of this van was constructed. But as you can see now, we've got a nice big open space inside the van, and we're going to add in a third seat, and we're finally to the point where we can start talking about the layout of the van. I decided to put up the plastic sheet and just bring the hose down here and give it a good hosing, throw some degreaser on it, and really wash it out, because the smell bothers me almost as much as the dust and the grease. I mean, all this is going to get covered up anyway, but it's comforting to know that it is clean underneath at least. We are going to have electrical running underneath the floor probably in some places, so we don't want to have a bunch of dust surrounding our electrical wires. The water pressure's pretty good considering that it's well water, and the owner of this house has a really good filtration system. So I sprayed some grill degreaser on there, which it does not take very much of that stuff to really wipe out a lot of grease, because I mean when it's built for cleaning grills, that stuff is super concentrated. Of course, this means that we washed off the rust primer from those steps, and I have to come back and do that again the next day. Natalia said that washing this floor was therapeutic. I said, well, have at it. It's all yours. Now that we have the van cleaned out, we're going to do a rough layout of what we're talking about. I've got a certain vision in my head that I am trying to convey to Natalia, but I am eventually going to settle on building a 3D model, which everybody will get to see in just a second. Yes, I know the camera angles aren't ideal. I'm still new to this YouTube thing. We're working on it. It's one of many projects that I have, in addition to a blog and learning how to film things and building the van itself and finding all the parts we need to build for the van, not to mention taking care of a little boy who's turning 4 in about a month, and cooking dinner and buying groceries and all those things. But we end up working on this about 6 hours a day. So I'm pretty proud of us. It's exhausting. I spend 3 hours or so every morning writing and editing videos. Oh yeah, that's another thing, editing videos. I plan to get better at that too. It's on the list. It's a very long list. This is the view from the front with the Blue Eddy there in the lower left, and the fridge is the big gray box with a transparent red door to the left, and the kitchen in the foreground. And then this is the view from the back where you've got the table set up, and then you fold the bed mattresses down and you can sleep.